Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Back of the Pack podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Walker. Thank you for joining us as always. And hey, happy Thanksgiving. We are officially done with Turkey Day and into the holiday season. I don't know about you guys, but this seems too fast. Too fast. Weren't we just here? It's like we were just here a year ago. It's so strange how that works out. But hey, in the running world, let's just go over a few things because I feel like we're kind of behind. We've had guests on for the last few weeks, and trust me, I love having guests on the show. It is infinitely better for you guys to listen to other people than me most of the time, at least in my humble opinion. But it does leave us behind on a few things. So the lottery window has kind of come and gone for two of the big races. I hope you were able to get in, at least get your name entered into these two World Marathon Majors. The announcements of placement, I think, are coming within the next week or two. So hopefully you're able to get into either the Berlin Marathon, because that lottery is closed and they're about to release the people who are in, and then also the Chicago Marathon for 2023. They are just about ready to announce the results of the draft and the results of the lottery, and however you want to phrase it, that's what they're about to do. So both of those are coming up. If you entered yourself in there, hey, good luck. I hope you guys hit it. If you're trying to go to Chicago, Chicago is a really super cool race. I did that one in 2018. I really enjoyed Chicago. I like that city overall. It's a very fun city. The race is just as flat as everyone will tell you. Everyone will say, oh my goodness, the Chicago Marathon, it's so flat, it actually hurts your hips because there's no incline, there's no decline. It's just the same the whole way. And they're right. It really is. And there's not too much incline or decline. It is just you and a very long straight line. And it's not straight. You do a lot of twists and turns and wrapping around buildings and up and down blocks and this, that, and the other. But no real up and downs to speak of until you're about a quarter mile away from the finish line, where you have to go up one hill to get back into Grant Park. And then you just head on to the finish line. But super good race. If you tried to get into the Chicago Marathon for 2023, best of luck. I hope they call your name. And then if you tried to get into the Berlin Marathon for 2023, I haven't done that race, but if you are a long-ish time listener to this show, you'll know that I made it in last year due to injury and just falling behind on training because of injury. I deferred it to 2023. So if you make it in 2023, you're going to be out there with yours truly, and it's going to be an experience. Definitely going to be fun. It'll end up being my fourth star for the World Marathon Majors once we complete Berlin, and my first international race. So I'm super excited, looking forward to it. And of course, we will cover it all here on the podcast. Even by then, hope to have our YouTube channel up and running, which is something we've talked about doing. And for something like that, for the traveling marathons and the big major races, I definitely would like to have some kind of YouTube presence so I can record things and you guys can see kind of what I see while we're out doing it. And so it should be super fun. I'm excited about that. So I told you that's going to be my fourth star. I'm only sitting here with two. So I've got a third star that I have to get in between, and that is the Boston Marathon. Now, we are coming up to Giving Tuesday. We have Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and then Giving Tuesday to, help us not feel so guilty about our greed of, 4 straight days of online shopping. But if you are looking for something to do for Giving Tuesday, my fundraising for the Boston Marathon has fallen completely flat. Like, we have splatted against the wall. And I'm going to be 100% honest. I understand. And I'm sure the people who are offering me the charity bib probably would not like me saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I understand it is hard to donate to a Boston charity, as I'm a guy sitting here in Kansas City. And as most of my listeners are people also here in the Midwest, I know it's not your number one priority to donate to a charity out of Boston. I get it. Now, it is for a good cause. It is to promote a healthy lifestyle through running for kids who may not be exposed to the sport. They are doing great things through the Boston Athletic Association charity. They are doing it in Boston. So I get that it's hard to make that connection. I understand. I do need help with the fundraising. If you are looking for your charity dollar to go somewhere and you don't know where, my charity bid for Boston would be a most lovely place for it to fall. You can go to the backofthepackpodcast.com. You'll see a big old cartoon me, and it says send Kyle to Boston. If you follow that, that will take you to my charity page. If you feel so inclined and would like to throw a few dollars to get the Back of the Pack podcast out to Boston and get that whole race covered for the show, I would really appreciate it, because we're in a little bit of trouble right now, as there's a big deadline coming up and we're nowhere close. So I do need help. If you feel at all called to do so, my glorious listeners, because we don't ask for anything. I don't have a Patreon page set up. Everything we do for this podcast is out of pocket, out of Katie and I's pocket. A lot of Katie's right now with these lovely t-shirts she keeps producing. But if you do feel called to donate towards getting us to Boston, it is greatly appreciated. I understand the little mental disconnect that there is. I understand it. I acknowledge it. I appreciate it. But we do need help. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Go to the podcast webpage, backofthepackpodcast.com. You can help if you feel so inclined. Okay, cool. We good on all of that? So we got Chicago coming up, Berlin coming up. Help me with Boston. We are a little behind on race reviews, so I'm going to throw out a few race reviews. Just some real quick ones, nothing too big and scary. Went and did a new half marathon last week. You guys probably saw something posted about it. Maybe you even did it yourself or you've heard of it. It was a new one. It's called the Loggerhead Half Marathon. They do have a full marathon option as well. So it's the Loggerhead Marathon and Half Marathon in Ottawa, Kansas. So that's about 40 miles outside of where I am currently sitting right now. It was an interesting race. Now, first, the weather stunk. Thankfully, it was at least sunny. But even for Kansas City, it was unseasonably cold. It was very windy. It was not a very pleasant morning. With the wind chill, I think we started somewhere in the teens temperature-wise, so that was kind of gross. It was cold from start to finish. Even doing the half marathon, I never really got loose. I never really got warmed up. Just felt like I was kind of fighting that body tightness the entire race. The race was interesting. It goes along something called the Spirit Trail down in Ottawa. We just kind of start in downtown Ottawa. It's like the trail just kind of picks up behind a church and oh, boom, there's a starting line right there on this little path behind the church. And so you start there and they send you out, and it's just a 6.5 mile out and back. That's all it is along this gravel trail, but not big gravel, just that real compact gravel. It's almost like you're running on asphalt, but it's just real compact gravel and dirt. At least it's a sturdy course. It is kind of a running / bike trail. So once you get a little bit out of the town, it's just a bike trail is really all it is. And so did that. It was a good race. And, when I was done with the race, I thought, okay, I've done this race. I don't need to do it again. I'll find something else, onward and upward with life. But then I got to thinking about it. It's like, you know what? My time for that race was just okay on what I felt should have been a faster course. The problem was when we came off that bike trail and came back into town with about a 5K left, we were head first into a stiff wind. The wind was just howling out of the north. And once you actually have to go under an overpass. But once you hit that and you kind of got back on the concrete and got back into civilization, that wind, it just wrecked my last 5K of the race. And I fell off something fierce. I couldn't keep my pace. I couldn't keep my time, and I couldn't keep my motivation as that wind was just sucking the life right out of me. And then there was a pretty decent uphill towards the finish line. You get to finish going downhill, but you got to get up this hill first. And I didn't really notice it in the first half of the race, but boy, I noticed it coming back. And so my time was not what I wanted it to be, not what I felt that it should be for how well I ran, let's say the first 8-9 miles of that race. And so I might actually go back next year and give this race another try, because I feel I could do better. They definitely need runners. This was a teeny tiny race, a very nice medal, a very nice shirt. And it's run well, but very small. And so if they're going to continue to do this, I think I should probably throw some support behind it. Because I do like, these kind of out of the way races. I like a little bit of a destination race, not like it's a traveling race. It's 40 miles. I drove down that morning and drove back after, but never hurts to help a race out like that. And it was overall a fun experience. And now as I think about it and kind of dwelled on it, I want another shot at that course. So I think next November, if this race continues on, I'm going to be back down there for the Loggerhead Half Marathon. Credit to all the people who did the full marathon, because that, then it's just 13.5 miles out and back along that path in the cold, in the wind. Thankfully, this course gives you a long time to do it. They have a very lenient time limit. So if you're looking for a first time, and if you don't mind kind of being out in the middle of nowhere, there's no crowd support and there's no one cheering you on. There's just the aid stations and other runners and you. It wouldn't be a bad one. Like I contemplated maybe doing the full of this because that's just where you put your headphones on and you try and get lost in your own thoughts for 5, 6, 7 hours, whatever it takes you to get across the finish line. But then you'd have a full marathon done. And if you want to do a full marathon in every state, like I have this dream of, don't know if it'll ever happen, then this would be a good way to get Kansas off your list. Because don't forget, and especially if you're not local to us, just doing the Kansas City Marathon, the big one in October, the one that we were at the expo of and this, that, and the other, that's technically a Missouri race. So if you want to get Kansas off your list, the Loggerhead Marathon is a good way to do it, or half marathon if you want to do 50 half marathons in each state. Loggerhead's a good way to do it. The Garmin Land of Oz Marathon and half marathon that are in the spring, another good way to do it. You just got to be careful in this area that even though it says Kansas City, you're not over on the Missouri side and get Missouri off your list, unless you need to. But I have Missouri off my list because I did the Kansas City Marathon. So that's that one. And then, of course, we did the Thanksgiving Day 5K, which I do every year. This is the one, if you're local, it's at Ward Parkway, because now there's about 3 to 4 different Turkey Day races going on around here. But I did the Ward Parkway one. It's a big one. A lot of people attend it. If you've run a race out there around Ward Parkway, you know the course. You know exactly what you're getting yourself into. It's the same course as 4 on the 4th. It's the same course as Rock the Parkway. It's the same course as a lot of different races. Oh, a corporate challenge that go up and down the same part of the same road in the same part of town. We know it. We know it well. You know the hills that are going to be great. You know the hills that are going to kick your rump. But either which way, Thanksgiving Day races, not that big of a deal. They're more for fun than anything else. If you go out there and you're focused on your time, you're going to end up disappointed because there are so many people and it's so hard to get off to a good start. Unless you're up in the front with, the more elite runners, you're going to get behind that family that didn't know they should have lined up and back. You're going to get behind those people pushing the strollers who just kind of meandered on once the race started and no one was paying attention to the pacing signs. You're going to get all the kids. You're going to get all the people that just don't know what they're doing, that don't know the race etiquette, that didn't listen to our episode here about race etiquette, although they should have. You're going to get all those folks and you're going to have to do some weaving and you're going to have to wait for the course to open up a little bit. And, ultimately your finishing time hurts, because you can't get off to the start that you want. So I enjoy those races. Holiday themed races are fun. You can't take them too serious unless you're up at the very front of the pack. You're going to get behind people and you just kind of have to weave and dodge and figure it out. But anyway, they're fun. So the Ward Parkway one is the one we did this year. It's funny. This is the first time I think they've offered it. You can actually buy your finisher medal for like $5 extra, because previously the finisher medal that you got was they give you this little personal pumpkin pie. And that's what they'd always done. But now this year they offered finisher medals as well, which I thought was kind of a nice touch. So I absolutely paid $5 extra and got my finisher medal, and you'll see it on Medal Monday. So there you go. All right. So that is that. Another one. Geez, I feel like we're catching up on everything. But a big thanks to last week's guest, Chris from the Casey Santa Dash. It was super fun having him on. I thought, we back and forth pretty well about the race. That was the first time he and I had ever met. It was the first time we'd ever spoken, was recording last week's episode. So I thought that went really well. You never know how you're going to jive with people from races and from, just other walks of life. But I don't know. I feel very fortunate that over the course of doing the show, Chris and I jived really well. I think Dave jived really well. Dave, of course, from the Kansas City Marathon, he's great and he has a history in broadcasting. So he knows what he's doing. Then our various other charities that we've had on and other races, I think everyone has been super great. And I've really enjoyed having people on. And I'm looking forward to having more on. So we've got some more guests coming up. We have some people coming back. And even though we're getting deeper and deeper into fall, like to the point we're now into the holidays, like it's full-blown holiday season now, we're still going to have guests on. We're still going to have races to talk about. So even though we're getting into the cold, I don't think that this podcast is going to slow down at all. I think we're just going to have about 2 months of talking about some fun wintry stuff. And then boom, spring running season is going to be here. And already looking at my calendar, the spring running season is going to be here fast. And it's going to be full. And there's going to be tons of races. So a lot of chances for us to to get out and see each other again real soon, even though nothing's slowing down. There's 3 big races in December. There's at least 2 in January. And I mean, big races. I'm sure there's other 5Ks I just haven't researched yet. And then February, I know there's 2. And then we're into March and it's on like Donkey Kong. And if you can believe it, this show turns 1 year old in March. Can't wait. That should be fun. We'll have to figure out something fun to do. So I know I've thrown a lot of stuff at you guys, and I know a lot of times we have kind of our one theme for the show, and we do. But I want to preface this by saying, I'm going to say a few things here. You guys know me. I have never claimed to be an expert in anything. I'm simply a guy who likes to talk about running, who is willing to sit here and find the articles that pertain to what we're talking about. Most of the time, those articles are written by the experts. I am not the expert. I'm going to relay what they say. Ultimately, decisions come down to you. Decisions come down to your research and what you think and who you believe and this, that, and the other. So I just want to say, when we dive into this real quick, I am simply relaying. Okay, please do not take life advice or life lessons from me. We are all grown adults and can make up our own minds here. That being said, I want to hearken back to something that happened a little over a month ago. And the person that I'm referring to when I tell you this story, if they still listen to the show, they're going to hear this and they're going to immediately say, oh, geez, it was not that big of a deal. Certainly not something I should still be talking about now. But it was a big deal to me, and I still feel bad about it. So we're going to address it here. This also brings up, you guys, if you know me, I am simply a runner who likes to talk about running. I am not a trained podcaster. I'm not a trained journalist. I sometimes don't say the right things. I am like every other person who will sometimes open mouth, insert foot, and I'll say something stupid. And that's what happened to me back in October. And I still feel bad about it. So we're going to address it here. We were at the Garmin Kansas City Marathon Expo. Okay, we had the booth there. It was an amazing experience. We interviewed people. We talked to people. We did some recordings. We did some recordings that we couldn't air because our audio was all messed up. All of the above. And I was talking to a specific runner. Now, if you know this about me, I am not afraid to imbibe the adult beverage. Okay. I enjoy drink, and I'm one of those people that if you are a friend of mine and you're having a bad time and we need to talk, I'm going to say, let's get a drink. If we're going to go out and we're going to celebrate something and you're talking to me, I'm going to say, hey, let's go get a drink. That is one of the ways that I connect with people. I'm Irish. I'm very Irish. This is our thing. If we're going to connect, we're going to connect at a bar having a beer, because that's just kind of where my life and my habits have steered me towards. That's not everyone's jam, okay? So I was talking to a runner, and my question to this runner is just something fun to talk about. We're in an expo booth. There's a lot going on around us. It was, what is your favorite post-race beer or your favorite post-race drink? And they answered that question. And we had our chuckles and on we went with life. Then later reached out and said, hey, I'm trying to be a sober runner. Can we kind of remove the alcohol references from what we talked about? Well, heck yeah. And then I feel like a complete jackwagon for even asking the question, because you know what? There are people out there who choose to live that more sober lifestyle. And then there's the people who need to lead that more sober lifestyle. And my dumb Irish self, who would always invite someone out for a beer, this is not the first time that kind of the insensitivity of that has maybe made someone uncomfortable, or someone's been fighting with their sobriety and I didn't know. And so my invite out for a beer is a potential temptation to break their sobriety. And then in this situation, I felt like a complete moron for even asking the question. I was trying to think of something that would be fun, something that we could talk about. And this person has chosen to be a sober runner. And I applaud that decision every time. And then I'm sitting there like, oh, Kyle, you moron. You did it again. You've asked an alcohol-related question and made someone uncomfortable. Dude, you've got to knock this off. And so like, I I've been wanting to talk about this like ever since it happened, but we've had guests on and we've had other topics and this, that, and the other. And so I wanted to look. And it's so funny. Well, funny is a strong term. But after, I decided, okay, I'm gonna have an episode about this. What comes in my mailbox? An article about alcohol and running. Like, well, clearly the higher running God powers things are trying to tell me something. And so let's talk about alcohol and running, because there are effects that alcohol has on your running. Again, this is what has been written. And for this first article here, of course, this comes from Runner's World. These people know more than me. I have no problem admitting that. So I read what they had to say about it. So again, I'm not offering you life and or medical advice, except to do your research and do what is best for you and your family. I am simply relaying what these people have discovered about running and alcohol, but ultimately everything is up to you. Okay, now they do talk a lot about some of the science of it. When they are doing this article, they are also referencing, kind of younger, more elite runners. Certainly not me. That does not pertain to me. Okay, so as they say here, obviously heavy drinking during training or any time of the year can be drastic. But so for the first part here, they're talking about moderate alcohol intake. And by definition, moderate intake is defined as up to 1 drink a day for women and up to 2 drinks a day for men. According to the Mayo Clinic, 1 drink is defined as a 12-ounce beer, a 5-ounce glass of wine, or 1.5-ounce serving of 80-proof distilled spirits. Okay, so if 1 to 2 drinks a day is moderate, they're calling that moderate. So thinking of you're having 1 to 2 drinks a day, 2 beers or a glass of wine or whatever your drinks are. Research has found that this level of intake may offer health benefits. According to the American Heart Association, the AHA, drinking the aforementioned 5-ounce glass of wine may positively affect HDL, that's the good cholesterol, but it's important to note that there are other ways to improve your HDL levels, including regular exercise, and that AHA does not recommend drinking wine or any other form of alcohol to gain potential health benefits. As for the effects of alcohol on training, one study published by the Journal of Nutrients found that people who performed, and this is that HIIT exercise, that high impact aerobic basically stuff, exercise twice a week and imbibed in moderate alcohol intake did not see any negative effects on their body composition during training. In fact, they saw significant decreases in body fat and increases in lean muscle mass despite moderate alcohol intake. While this study sounds promising, it was small and performed on young adults. Okay, young adults can absolutely train their way through alcohol intake. I think we're all aware of that. Does not pertain to some of us, especially wouldn't pertain to someone like me in their 40s. That's just not going to happen. I cannot outrun an unhealthy lifestyle. On the other hand, the effects of excessive drinking appears to induce detrimental effects on exercise capacity. That's a long way to say excessive drinking, bad. And because alcohol is a diuretic, alcohol intake can lead to dehydration. It says anyone who has ever suffered from a hangover knows this. Studies have shown alcohol may also decrease uptake of glucose and amino acids by the skeletal muscles, adversely affects the body's energy supply, and impairs metabolic processes during exercise. When it comes to your heart, the AHA suggests that hitting the bottle too hard could lead to high blood pressure, heart failure, and increased calorie intake. Not to mention, in extreme cases, it can also lead to a stroke, cardiomyopathy, cardiac arrhythmia, and sudden cardiac death. So there's a little heart information for you guys. And then, of course, and I hinted at this before, and some people should completely avoid consuming alcohol, according to the Mayo Clinic. This includes anyone who has been diagnosed with alcoholism or alcohol addiction or has a strong family history of alcoholism, those who have had a stroke, individuals on medication, check with your doctor to see if there is an interaction between alcohol and your prescription, those with altered liver function or cirrhosis of the liver, those with altered or elevated triglyceride levels, and women who are pregnant. Runners with type 1 and type 2 diabetes should be cautious, as alcohol intake can cause hypoglycemia. And though some runners swear that a few beers a night before a race helps their performance, the research doesn't necessarily agree. One review published in Nutrients found that drinking alcohol may have negative effects on endurance performance. Additionally, a study published in Sports Medicine found that drinking more than around 0.23 grams per pound of body weight after exercise can hinder recovery by negatively impacting normal immune system function, blood flow, and protein synthesis, all essential for recovery. It may also affect your ability to properly rehydrate. So the bottom line, as they say it, while light alcohol intake may positively affect certain health markers, this impact is no greater than benefits found with regular exercise or a healthy diet and may not trump the negative effects of alcohol itself. That said, there doesn't seem to be any harm in having a drink or two once or twice a week after a killer long run or to celebrate a PR. So as long as you aren't competing for the Olympic bid or you don't have confounding health factors, if you enjoy the taste of red wine with a steak or a post-run beer, then cheers. But if you're looking to improve performance, it is unlikely that alcohol consumption will be promoted anytime soon. So that is what Runner's World says about drinking and training. And it feels like this all makes a lot of sense. Of course, anytime you drink to excess, you're doing damage to your body. Anyone who's been drunk or hungover knows that. This is no duh, Kyle, kind of a thing. Whatever, Kyle. I get it. But it's also good to hear from time to time. 2 weeks ago, we had Pete on. Pete talked a little bit and kind of touched on the alcohol consumption, especially around the holidays. Around the holidays, there's always kind of not a pressure, but just always that more open invite for a drink. There's always that bottle of wine at the Christmas party. There's the people who are going out to watch the USA men's soccer match at the bar or to go see the Chiefs or whatever your NFL team is, watch the World Cup, whatever. It's how people kind of bring themselves together around the holidays at the bars, at the restaurants. And drinking, of course, this time of year is just more of a thing. It is for me. I'm sure it is for most of you as well. But there certainly can be negative effects to drinking too much. If you did subscribe to the belief that alcohol ultimately is going to help your running, I hope this kind of disproves a little bit of that, because no, I've never had a drink and thought, ooh, this is really going to help my run. The joke has been having a beer a couple days before a race and be like, I'm just carb loading for the race. Yeah. Of course, no one buys it. That's just the nonsense you tell yourself. And I get it because I've done the same thing. I certainly have no problem with having a beer after a race. That's what made me laugh so much the day of the Garmin Kansas City Marathon, because we were doing that cheer station. I only ran the 5K. And then I felt like a jackwagon for only running the 5K, but I only ran the 5K. No big deal. Finished the race. I'm getting done before the 10Kers, before the half marathoners, before the full marathoners, even though it started a little later. Well, it's what? Let's see. My race started, I think, at 8 a.m. So by about 8:45, I'm already down with a beer in my hand. Yeah, I took my one free beer that you get for doing that race, and I was drinking a beer at 8:45 in the morning. Made all the sense in the world to me. So, I will definitely enjoy a beer post-run. If it's a long race or a really strenuous race, I'm probably having my beer a little later in the day, not first thing in the morning. But yes, I'm certainly guilty of it. But I just wanted to throw it out there that I do understand that there are those who choose to do without. And to you, I applaud you. Nothing but credit. It is not an easy decision in a society that puts so much emphasis on drinking and on just, you can have a beer, it's fine. Or you can have that glass of wine, it's fine. Or, let's do a shot, it's fine. You. And if you need to have that sober training lifestyle, then by all means, you do you. And if I am ever dumb and insensitive enough to offer you a drink, you can knock me upside this head and say, hey, dummy, I don't do that. And that's fine. And then I will skulk away like the moron that I am sometimes, because, again, it's just, you could almost say it's one of my love languages. It's like, hey, let's have a drink. Yeah. So that has bothered me ever since the expo. And again, I know this person probably has not given it a second thought. And I am thankful for their grace in my dumbassery. And I'm going to try after this episode now. I'm going to try and put this to bed and stop worrying about it, because I can tell you it has bothered me at least one time a week ever since it happened. But maybe this will do it. Maybe this is the cathartic experience I needed to put this behind me. So that's what we're going to go with. I didn't keep a running clock going. We might be long, we might be short, or this episode just might be perfect. Either which way, it is done. Stick a fork in it. So that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Back of the Pack podcast. Thank you guys very much for putting up with my nonsense as always. I am your host, Kyle Walker. This show is produced by Katie O'Neill and is brought to you by OKKC Sports. We will be back next week with more fun and frivolity, so make sure you join us. Again, I'm going to hammer it home one more time. If you're looking for a place for your donation dollar, please help me out. Backofthepackpodcast.com. Click on the link that says Send Kyle to Boston and donate towards getting me that Boston Marathon charity bib. I've already bought the GoPro, so we are ready to video blog the heck out of the Boston Marathon come April. You guys just got to help get me there. So I will send you all the videos if you guys can donate anything towards getting me to that final goal, because we got a long way to go and a short time to do it, and we're falling behind the pace. So anyway, all I'm going to say on that, everyone have a great week of training, and we will see you next week.